Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beyond the Home Study podcast. This is a podcast for parents, especially those who have children through or are exploring foster care and adoption. We are here to help you navigate the world beyond paperwork and placement. Thanks for being here. All right, today we are talking about sensory and trauma and sensory. I don't know which way we had that originally, but that's what we're here to talk about. Laura, how you doing?
Huh, good. We've had some trauma this past week. I haven't even shared this with you, Abby. Different
Man,
type of trauma. We had a little ER visit the other day.
is this the first?
No, actually, no, it's not.
Okay.
um, when we got there, I was like, "Did we make it 6 months?" And she was like, "Just barely, but you did it." This time, however, was a little bit more traumatic. My kids were playing in the stroller in the driveway and like just playing around on it. And one my son got in the bottom part of the stroller, like in the stroller, it's a double.
Mhm.
And so he was in the lower part, and my daughter
Yeah.
pushed the stroller and it went down a hill and he hit a ditch and flew out and like
Oh,
gashed his
no.
forehead. Hmm.
Ooh, that, like, gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Fun times. I'm sure it's not the last time we will be at the ER.
So, was it what did they need, stitches or they glue
Yeah,
it? What did they
9
do?
stitches.
9 stitches?
No, he needed 9. It was pretty big.
Oh, goodness. Yikes.
It was good. It actually didn't bleed all that much, but he's like road rash. That's probably the worst part
It hurts, yeah.
on his face. But
Yeah.
uh anyway, so that was our traumatic 4th of July weekend.
Ay,
So super
ay.
fun.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, we've had 1 ER visit so far in our parenting journey, so we will see, how many more we have. We've had some we actually so Judah is such a climber, like, he wants to climb up and on and over and everything. So at my cousin's house, we were at my cousin's for 4th of July weekend, and he climbed on, like it's kind of hard to describe, but, like, he was on the stairs, like, the banister that kind of, like, goes around the stairs, and he was on, like, the inside of it, like, at the highest point. Like if he would have fallen, he would have hit the bottom step of these super steep stairs. So he was like way up. And I saw him and I was like, okay, stay calm, stay calm. I like walk over to him. I'm like, okay, bud, I'm just going to lift you over. And he had a flour tortilla rolled up in his mouth, like a cigar, like sticking in his mouth. And he said, my wings are going to pop out because he's been watching a lot of Buzz Lightyear. And I was like, oh. So I'm like, calm, calm, calm. Okay, bud, just relax. I'm gonna lift you over this banister. So that was that could have ended in an ER trip, but thankfully it didn't.
Oh, well, these are so fitting for our sensory and trauma
I know.
topic today.
I know. I'm like, okay, let's diagnose. Like, what was he thinking? What was he doing?
I know, right? Like, what was he seeking? No
Yeah,
wonder what
I
input
know.
he was seeking there.
Other than
You
to
would
be
freak
Buzz
out at my house.
Lightyear.
We let to be yeah, obviously. You would like die at my house because I let them climb the outside of the banister.
Oh my gosh. He used to climb at our old house. We had like, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 stairs that he could climb up and then he'd climb back down, like no problem. And I didn't have any issue with that. I think it made me freak out because it was like probably 15 feet high. Like, I mean, it was so tall and it was unfamiliar. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, one day, he'll rock climb or do something and use these skills for more good than what it is now.
We can only hope.
I know.
We have some boundaries. So what we do, we're gonna talk about sensory today, and I have one shot. My son is a sensory seeker. Um, and he likes to climb a lot. And so instead of saying like you can't climb
Uh-huh.
because one, that doesn't go over well, just to be like, you can't do this thing. I either will give them something else to do. So this is just heading right in, guys. This is
Yep.
a tip
That's
for you.
good.
Give another way to like outlet. Or with the specifically the stairs for us, it was just constant. So I'd always be like, here, bud, let's go climb this other thing. Let's go climb this other thing. But I was like, all right, once they got to a point where I'm like, I feel a little bit more comfortable. Now I'm like, okay, you can climb it, but the rule is, or the boundary is that you have to have a spotter. And like it has to be an adult. Um, so I'm like, you're not allowed to climb unless I'm in here with you or dad, and you have to be like, spot me, and then you can climb. And then also like only one child at a time.
Yeah. I think that it would be fun if they called each other to be their spotters.
Well, they probably do. I mean,
No, that would be bad.
uh,
My
we do have a
so
couch there. I will say there's a little bit of
oh,
like an extra thing because our
that's
couch is
good.
there, but I don't know that they would hit the couch. Like you could technically like, yeah, but anyway.
Bounce off of it. I know. We have nuggets. We have 2 nuggets that, like, we've set up before if he's gonna, like, climb up something or, like, wants to jump or whatever, like, we have those, but they're still I'm like, you could still get really hurt falling on one of those, but
Yeah, and those are hard. The nuggets are
I
kinda
know.
hard.
Yeah, especially there's, like,
Um,
2 sizes. One of them is the thicker one is, like it's, like, the floor. I mean, it feels hard, and then the other one's softer.
oh, I didn't know there was 2.
That's so great.
My kids are very well versed in climbing because I climb, and so
That's
they,
fun.
like now they are always saying things.
That's
So any
great.
of you any of you no, anyway, anywho, together. Any God, what time is it?
I know.
Uh,
I know. We have
so
well, it's funny, before you jump in. So we have not recorded just the 2 of us together in, like, I don't know, the past 6,
a month?
7 episodes, and we've, like, kind of pivoted to recording at night versus recording in the mornings just because of childcare and everything, and, like, any of you parents out there know, like, you get to that point in your day where you're like, it's all downhill from there, and I feel like that's how we always come into these now. We're like, we are struggling to stay on the hill somewhere,
Coherent.
not at the bottom.
Coherent. I'm not quite tired, but I just don't know if, like, cognitively I'm all the way there.
Yeah, that's same. Yeah.
Well,
Anywho,
anywho, so today, sensory and trauma. Let me give you guys just a brief overview. If you saw this title and you were like, "Oh my gosh, I need this." I mean, I hope you did because this is a thing. Like, just for all of you adoptive parents out there, it's absolutely a thing where our children that have been adopted, and even more so ones that either like have drug exposure, um, or have experienced significant trauma, like maybe they were adopted a little bit older, um, are at higher risk. But any of our adopted kids have a higher risk of having some sensory needs, like extra sensory needs. And so, um, you know, Abby and I just wanted to do this episode because, we all know that after the home study, you got the kid at home, regardless if they're a newborn or they're older, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, what is going on? Some of you have already done OT, you're in OT now. You've been in and out, and you like kind of know sensory a little bit, but all you know is there's definitely a tie here. And you're right, there is. So, we're going to talk about that today. I'll kind of explain some of the like basics, hopefully fill in some gaps for some of you moms that maybe know some. And Abby's gonna chime in and share some stories and whatnot. But that's just kind of what we're gonna get into today.
yeah, I think this will be good because like, as I've thought back on the episodes we've already done, even today, like, there was a moment where I was like, okay, Judah, I think you need a cold snack, like something cold because you need a little reset. Like, there's been these little things that we've like talked about here and there, but I feel like this episode will be good to kind of bring it all together and a good like reference point for even me to come back to and be like, oh yeah, okay, I need to remember that's why this is happening and this is what I need to do.
So let me give you guys just like a really brief overview. Like I'll make this super quick and just so that we're all on the same page as I kind of start to talk about different definitions. So, um, there are your regular, like, 5 senses that we all know. So see, touch, hear, taste, and feel. But there are 3 additional senses that we all have, and they're internal senses, and they are proprioception, vestibular, and interoception. And so, really briefly, what those three internal senses, proprioception is all about your body awareness. Okay. So, I always tell parents, like, it's your most primitive sense. So that's why if you have a little too many margaritas and you close your eyes and you try to touch your nose, you might miss. That's because you've lost some proprioceptive input. Okay. Your proprioception is off. It's your most primitive one. Um, and then vestibular, think inner ear and balance. Okay. And then interoception is actually like a newer one. So you may not, like some of you that are kind of in it, may not be as familiar with this one. Interoception is your body's ability to know what's going on inside. So think like, are they hungry? Are they tired? Am I sleepy? Am I in pain? Like that's impaired. And so we see a lot of this with like kids that don't realize they have to go to the bathroom, or my daughter always thinks she's hungry when she's tired. So
Mm,
some things like that. And it can get deeper than that. But that's just kind of your like nitty-gritty, or not nitty-gritty, your basic
yeah.
senses.
Yeah, I think that I feel like there's so many things I already am like thinking through and want to ask you. So we'll see as we like keep going along. But I feel like I'm here to learn just as much as our listeners are.
Did you know about interoception? I mean, I don't know if maybe we've talked about that some.
No, I don't think we have, but honestly, what I just thought of when, especially when you said, what LJ does, I think of like what happened last night, like stalling at bedtime, where it's like keep asking for food, and it's like, I think you're just tired, but are you hungry? Like, just like trying to think through that, and obviously, every parent has to like go with their gut and like figure out okay like what's actually happening here, but if there's like actual tools for us to understand what is really happening, that could help in even some of those stall what we see as stalling tactics, but maybe they're not.
Sensory. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, there's probably both. Like
Yeah.
with all things, like it's always like convoluted and overlapping. And like this is not meant to be like you guys, I could give like a 2-week seminar on
That's so
sensory and
cool.
trauma. And I do actually do a beginner training for foster parents in the state of Kentucky. But actually that's coming up this month. So if you are a foster
Ooh,
parent in Kentucky, it's a free training. So you should go. I'll link that at the bottom.
that's great.
And it's just like a very basic, like 101, but yeah,
Super
there's a lot to
helpful.
it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Um, yeah, but there is a lot of overlap. So a lot of times you guys will see things where you're like, is this trauma or is this sensory? And like the same symptom could actually be both.
Hmm. What do you
And
think
you may
is
be able to
the
suss it out and you maybe not. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we started recording. Like, I definitely remember a time in my life where, one of my friends was talking to me about one of their foster placements that they had, and, the trauma responses that he was having to different things. And in my mind, I like naively was like, I don't think that that's trauma. Like, you've had him since day, 5 or 10 of his life. Like, what trauma could he have experienced in the hospital? Like truly that is where my mind was. And I'm sure that there's plenty of other people who think that out there. And it's I've had to do lots of learning and lots of just having discussions of trying to figure out like, okay, what do I really think about this? So I guess one of my questions for you is what is the value of acknowledging that some of these things could be trauma responses, and what versus just, oh, he's just being a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, or like, kind of the comments that you hear like that.
Well, I think again, so it's convoluted on whether or not like is this a trauma response or is this like a sensory processing issue.
Mhm.
Um and on some levels it doesn't matter. Like for your question, like it's important to just understand that there's more going on.
Yeah.
Um oh gosh, that's so important. Like not knowing creates, just think about like, so the very first thing I think about is like think about how compassionate you are towards like even another adult when you know that like that person that just snapped at you just lost their father.
Mm,
You know what I mean? You're like, okay, like it was wrong of you to snap at me, but like
sure.
I have so much grace for you because like I understand that like you're going through something,
Uh-huh.
right? And so for our kids, like if everything is through a lens of like typical development, we tend to lose that compassion.
Hey, friends, if you've been enjoying Beyond the Home Study and want to help us keep these real, honest conversations going, we've got two simple ways you can support the show. First, you can subscribe to or follow the show and give us a 5-star review wherever you listen. This helps more parents just like you find our show. Second, we just set up a Buy Me a Coffee page. It's a way to donate to our show and just a small way to say, hey, this matters. If you would like to support the show, you can head to buymeacoffee.com/Beyond the Home Study, or simply click the link in our show notes. And please know that we're incredibly grateful.
Now, even then, like we should have compassion. They're still kids, right? But then when you put on this trauma lens and you say, like, okay, I know that like any child that has been adopted, regardless if they were even embryo adoption, where you're like, no, but I carried them. Like there was no drug exposure. Like there's no trauma. Like, yes, there is. Like, now I'm not saying it's significant and I'm not saying that they're like, are going to have these like issues and never bond or anything like that. But
Right.
like, that's not what we're saying here. But there is something unnatural about it. It wasn't the intended plan for that child, and it does disrupt things in a way that is traumatic. No, we'll probably do another episode on this, but there's a big difference between like big T trauma and like little T trauma.
Yeah.
Um, but either way, like it's super important to understand that your child has experienced a trauma and that can affect the way that their brain grows, specifically more of these kids that have gone through kind of the things that I was mentioning in the beginning. And that affects their sensory system and that affects the way that they intake input and then how they express output.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think it's good to acknowledge it. I like the comparison of when you see what someone has gone through or like is even currently going through and the compassion you have, because it's hard to have grace and compassion at the end of a long day or even at the
Yeah,
beginning of a
totally.
long day. So, um, yeah, I like that. That's good. Really
Yeah.
good.
There's an example. This is not mine, and I don't remember if we shared this in a previous episode or not, but um, I once heard this in a training that I took where you have a child that's like sitting in a grocery cart and they're freaking out. Like they're sitting in the cart, you're at the checkout line, and they're just like crying and they're melting down. And your response could be like, oh, God, like, I get it. We're going to leave soon. Like, oh my gosh, like, just stop, and you're
Mhm.
frustrated and whatnot. And then like like revert back and like put on your trauma lens, put on your sensory lens, and let's say this child is actually in pain because the seat of the cart is hurting them,
Mhm.
but they don't have great awareness and they're not able to communicate that. Now how are you going to respond?
Yeah.
Completely different.
Yeah, that's good. And do you see that even in things um like I've seen Judah react like that when he's like wearing pants that are too big for him, or like they're kind of like rubbing on his waist, or like they're not tight enough, so like when he goes to run they're falling down, like all these different things. I noticed it even today. He had a swimsuit on that was like definitely too big, and he's trying to move and then he's getting really irritated, and he's not irritated at his pants, he's irritated at what's going on around him. He's definitely reacting to me in a way that isn't his usual. And so yeah, that's really interesting,
But
like
like the
thinking about it.
underlying thing is like I'm in pain, I'm irritated. Yeah, but, like, think about you, like, if you walked around with, like, a pebble in your shoe, like, you maybe wouldn't recognize that that's why you're frustrated, and then all of a sudden you take the pebble out and you're like or, like, you're hangry, and you
Yeah.
don't realize you're hangry. Like, that's sensory because
Yeah.
that's part like, taste and interoception, like, the feeling of feeling full or hungry, like, if that's off, it affects
Mhm.
our behavior, and so if we're having these issues as adults and then you've got a child that has an impaired sensory system, which means they're taking in like regular input and it's not processing correctly.
Mhm.
So like that tag that might be like minorly annoying to you and me is like pins and needles. It's scraping them. It is hurting. Their brain is saying, this hurts so bad, you
Mhm.
know? And we're like, you're just too sensitive.
So is the answer just like remove all of those things and like never wear pants that are too big, never have tags that are like what are steps that we could take, to kind like can those impairments be healed somehow?
So there's like a process, right? And
Okay.
it depends on the age and a lot of things. But basically, like sometimes, yes, you just need to remove the tag. You just need to buy soft clothes.
Mhm.
You know, that's what in therapy we call this a compensatory strategy.
Okay.
So we're compensating for something that's going on. And sometimes I'll say, like, check your environment. Like, how
Mhm.
can we adapt the environment um, to meet your need? Now, to answer your question, like, can it be healed? Um, I mean, I wouldn't put it in those words because that, like, could insinuate some things. But can we, like, can your brain create different pathways? Absolutely. Can you eventually get to a place where your brain says, okay, that's irritating. That's not pins and needles? Yes.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a lot of different ways for that. There's a difference. You guys, sometimes this is kind of nuanced, but you'll hear the word sensory processing and then you'll hear the term sensory integration. And sensory integration is not always thrown around correctly. You'll hear me say sensory processing because sensory integration is like a specific type of therapy that
Hmm.
you need to be certified for.
Oh,
So if you
interesting.
have a therapist, like if your child's in OT and they're like, oh, yeah, we're doing sensory integration therapy. And then you look at their credentials and you don't see that they are certified in that. And it's usually they've changed the name. It was SIPT, SIPT, and it may be different now. But anyway, but if you're not certified in it, then you're actually not doing sensory integration training because
Wow.
it's like an actual protocol.
Mhm.
But their whole deal, like sensory integration therapy, is to rewire the brain so that these inputs aren't misfiring.
Yeah. That's so interesting because, like, so when I hear rewiring the brain, I think of like going back and like going back to that trauma, like what happened, if within the first 5 days when in utero, like those different things. Like, I think of, I don't know, like EMDR and like some of those things of like going back and like really revisiting the trauma to heal. And so that's so interesting. Like I feel like I want to learn more about that of like, is that something you do for sensory processing needs? Is it not? Like that's probably a whole other can of worms, but
Well, it's interesting that you're saying this because it's really controversial what you're
yeah.
talking about. So there is a type of like an intervention,
Hmm.
and it's called desensitization. And it's what you think it is. Like, let's desensitize you to this input.
Hmm.
The reason that it's controversial is because it's really uncomfortable and really unpleasant. And so you kind of have these like two camps. Like when I was in school, they taught us desensitization. Like, oh yes, like if that tag is pins and needles, then let's do a little bit of the tag and brush it lightly and then give you a lollipop or like do something pleasant with it. So you're associating it with that and let's get you used to it. Let's get you used to it. Okay. And this will help desensitize you. And it's more technical than that, but I'm just like
Yeah.
throwing that out there. Um, and that's a technique. And you can actually do that with burns. You also desensitize, like, because your skin, like, after a burn is like super, super sensitive, and you can desensitize your skin to not be so sensitive. Now, in that case, like with a burn, that's appropriate.
Right.
But with, a child, now I say this and I'm probably going to like ruffle some feathers because there are definitely therapists out there that are doing desensitization 100%. Um, but if you look into like really neuro affirming like practices, they're going off of like, hey, we've been talking to autistic individuals, which we know have a lot of sensory needs, right? That's
Hmm.
part of autism is having sensory processing difficulties. And they're like, why the heck are you doing this? Like, you're putting me through misery. Like, don't do this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow.
So, but there are other ways, like sensory integration therapy.
Mm.
They are not just doing desensitization. They're
Right.
like, it's way different.
Yeah, I wanna look at it and, like, just to understand it, just to see it, not necessarily that to say I agree with it or disagree with it, but just to learn more. So,
I mean, it's interesting. If you're
yeah.
like, I'll throw this at the bottom too. But if you guys are like really interested in sensory integration therapy, the like gold standard place to do this is in Denver, Colorado, and it's called the STAR Institute.
Huh.
And they lead like all the research. They are the ones that like started the SIP certification training. Well, no, they didn't start it. There was a person, but like they have like ran with it.
Yeah. Huh. That's so
But they
interesting.
have good resources too. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I want more resources, they have a great website and yeah.
Yeah. So, let's talk, like, some more practical things, like, maybe you could give us some different examples of things you've seen in your kids or, like, in kids that you've worked with, and then I mean, I can share examples of what I see in my kids, not necessarily if I've done the right thing,
Like,
but
tell me what to do. What do
I
I do here?
know, but
Um,
maybe it'll help somebody out there.
yeah, it might. Um, yeah, we could totally talk about that. So before we kind of dive into like really specific, you kind of have to be aware that there are like the biggest thing people talk about are sensory seekers, meaning, okay, let's take it a step back. So everyone has a threshold. Everybody has a sensory threshold. When you meet the threshold, um, that means like you got enough input, then your body releases dopamine and it feels good. And then you kind of just go up and down and hit this dopamine all throughout the day. Okay. But what happens with people that are not processing information or sensory information in the right way, they have a really high threshold or a really low threshold. So
Huh.
they're hitting it really quickly in the day. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want any more of this input, or they have a really high threshold and it takes so much to get to that dopamine hit. And there's
Uh,
actually two types there, but we're not going to go into that. So just kind of keep that in mind that when we talk about sensory input, it's not just these seekers, which is the one with that high threshold that are like constantly hitting it. And that's your kids, like they're running, they're jumping, they're crashing, they're spinning, all the things. There are also this whole other camp of kids that hit their threshold and are done. And sometimes they look the same.
ooh,
So when we
interesting.
talk about strategies, you
Uh-huh.
have to kind of know what you're doing. Like, well, what am I doing a strategy because they hit their threshold right away? Or am I doing a strategy because like they haven't hit their threshold yet? Does that make sense? Like, are you
Yeah,
tracking with me?
I am. I'm, like, trying to think as we go through examples, maybe I'll figure out where Judah's at because I also think it's, like, can change day to day. I mean, I feel like I could probably change day to day too.
Well, you can have different ones. So like I'll just throw out myself because I feel like that's the easiest way to like describe it. So and I'm not adopted. Um, do have some higher sensory needs though, I would say. Like not sensory processing disorder, but I would definitely say I have higher sensory needs than most, just to kind of throw that out there. So I had a really high threshold for, let's remember our definitions here, proprioceptive input. So body awareness. So that means I need a ton of deep pressure, which is where the receptors are. So like that's why I rock climb, right? Rock climb, lift weights. I want that deep pressure. I love to be touched and squeezed. Okay. I have a very low threshold for vestibular. So moving, so balance and auditory. So that means sound is like super low. Taste,
Interesting.
super high. I want lots of flavor all the time,
Mm.
right? So you could have different things here.
We need, like, I need, like, a quiz that I can take and figure out.
There is a quiz. I have a quiz.
Okay, yeah, I feel like I need to, because 'cause I'm like, okay, I'm, like, kind of tracking, but I'm also thinking, like, I don't know, it kind of depends. Like, it's different, and obviously,
Okay,
I'm not
I'll
adopted
post a
either.
quiz.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's just helpful for anyone. So I do have a
Yeah,
quiz that I use in that foster care training that I was talking about earlier.
yeah.
I give parents a quiz. And you guys, I'll throw it at the bottom, and you guys can like shoot us your email and it'll be like a free quiz you can take. But keep in mind, this is like something I created. This is in no way like a clinical based research fact.
No,
Like, this is just my give you a starting point quiz.
that's what I want. Like, I feel like I need a starting point because maybe if I can see it in myself, then I'll be able to see it more clearly in my child.
Okay, let me ask you this because this is can give me at least a good idea, kind of. Back when you're in college, where and how did you study?
I would study usually outside somewhere with maybe one or two other people.
Okay. Um, did you like at a park or like were there other people around or was it like a more secluded area?
No, it was more secluded. Like I remember like the side of my dorm building had like a green area, like a green space. So we'd like put a blanket out and go out and study.
Okay. And you would have a couple people with you.
Hmm.
Did you play music?
Yes.
Okay. Did you guys have snacks?
Yes.
Um, is that where like you got good studying done? Like you're like, I have to actually get studied. I have a test. This is how I do it. Or this is just like my social hour.
That's a good question. I feel like that's probably how I would like get started, and then I would have to like as it got like as the test got a little closer, I would need to be by myself like in the library, but still like probably with headphones on with music and a snack.
Okay. Okay. So that tells me, so I can't tell you exactly where you
Yeah.
are, but the information that like get from that is that auditorily you like that you're more of a seeker, so you probably have a really high threshold for noise. And it tells me that you probably have a higher threshold for taste. You probably have a visual threshold that's either like kind of in the middle or a little lower. Um what else does that tell me? I'm trying to think about some of the other ones here. Taste, proprioceptive input. You're not giving me a ton from that scenario,
I
but
know.
probably a little bit higher.
Yeah, I
And
think
the
so.
reason I'm saying this is because you are outside, which means you're seated on the ground as opposed
Mhm.
to seated in a chair.
Mhm.
So you're gonna get more input if you're sitting on the ground. Um, You're also probably gonna move your body around a little bit more, but you didn't say that like, "Oh, I sat in a hammock and read,"
Yeah,
or
right.
something like that. That would tell me like vestibular. Yeah, how is this like sounding
Yeah,
kind of
I think
right?
so. Yeah, because like, even when we've talked about music before, like, you and I have talked about, like, do you have music on in your house all the time? Do you need it to be quiet? Like, we have Sonos speakers throughout the house, and, like, I always have something on because I just like the sound. I don't like it to be, like, quiet, quiet.
And you also but I know you like personally, I'm like, "Okay, but you're a runner."
Uh-huh.
But see, there's a lot of different things there. So, like, a runner could be someone who likes vestibular input, but it
Mhm.
also could be someone but you're also more of a, like, a distance runner, right?
Yeah, well, at one point I was. Not so much. I'm a distance
But, like,
walker
there's a
right now.
different yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I'll take
All
your
the things.
quiz.
Now you guys can think about your kids.
I
Yeah, to take
know.
my quiz.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so when you're thinking about it, like, with your kids, you have to think through which I like, you guys, no one expects you to be, like, a therapist for your kids. Like,
There's actual
so,
therapists for that.
have some grace. Yeah. And even, we take, like, time. Like, I hate doing an evaluation on a kid and then being like, I don't know. It's one time. I saw your kid one time.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, but you wanna think through different things. So, like, sometimes someone will think like, "Oh, my kid hums all the time," or they're singing or they're making noise all the time. They must have a really high, audio threshold. Like, they wanna hear things. Yeah, maybe. Or it could be that they like the vibration in their ear, which is proprioceptive input.
That's
And
so
so when you're
crazy.
thinking through, like, what do I do? You have to kind of work through this puzzle in your head and you get to know your kids and then you just know, like, I know when my kid's doing this that we need to do this kind of activity. Um, Yeah, so you kinda have to, like, work through that puzzle to figure out, like, what's the unmet need here from a sensory standpoint, and that's, like, when you're doing it as a reaction, but you can also
Mhm.
just do preventative stuff too. So, like, if you know your child is a sensory seeker when it comes especially to, like, proprioceptive input, then, like, you need to be climbing, like,
Mhm.
every day or multiple times a day, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good to think about that because you see, like, whether it's on Instagram or TikTok or different things, it's like, these are the things that you should do with your kid every single day. Like, get outside, get messy, go on a walk, like all these different things. And it's like, let's say you have two, three, four kids. They may not all have the same needs. Like those are
Mhm.
good things. Like, yes, get outside, like put your feet in the grass, whatever it might be. But I think that's really important to think about that of like know your kids intentionally, each of them, and like what is going to be helpful for them. And like maybe if one's having a harder day for a variety of different reasons, how do you I don't like cater to that maybe in a little bit of a different way
Mhm.
versus just doing the thing because it's like it's good to do it every day.
Yeah. So I can give you like an example of this because you're
Yeah.
right. Like it's really hard when you're like, okay, I've got multiple kids and I only have two. So those of you that have more than that, like it gets even more complicated.
Yeah.
So in general, being outside, you can hit more needs
Yeah.
from all the spectrums. Um, and giving your kids free reign. This is so, so, so important. Giving your kids free reign to figure out what they need as you're guiding them through is so helpful. So you can put your kids outside and this takes work. Like this takes teaching them to like understand their own body to get there. But like, okay, my kids, my son is the sensory seeker, moving his body all the time. My daughter tends to have more of like a low threshold for a lot of different types of stimulus. So when we go outside, one of the we're gonna do a compensatory thing for my daughter. So immediately if we're going outside, I'm always gonna make shoes or socks available to her. Always. And what's interesting, and this is something that you guys like need to kind of keep in the back of your mind, she will not tell me, "Mom, can I have my socks or shoes?" She just will stand on the outside of the areas and not engage as much. Or she'll come and climb on me and like be in my
Yeah.
space. And then I'm like, just go play, right? But it's because she doesn't want to go in the grass. She doesn't like the way the grass feels on her feet. So if I provide those shoes as soon as we go outside or socks, it doesn't matter for her, then she's going to go play.
Yeah.
So there's that right away. Other things we do is like we make things available in the yard. I have things for my son to climb. And then I have um like a kitchen for my daughter, like a mud kitchen for her to play with. But I also have hats because she doesn't like it when things fly near her face.
Hmm.
So I'm like, let's put a hat on, and that helps her to not feel like there are bugs like flying near her.
Oh, that's
Right.
good.
So there's different ways that you can kind of like work around. Um, she likes, to sit and play with her hands. So the mud kitchen, the sand, those things are really great for her. My son would prefer to climb and kick a ball.
That's really good. I think that, yeah. I think it's so cool too because you probably end up seeing them like play with each other and like do the other thing, but maybe they're more comfortable in like what you said. Like these are kind of their zones that they're in.
Yeah, and to your you like the desensitization that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So never, never, never have I told my daughter, "Get over it, you need to walk on the grass."
Yep.
Or lured her and been like, "Well, if you really want that, you would just walk there."
Right.
That's desensitization. That is not meeting like a medical need. That's not okay. However, I have forgotten her shoes or she's taken them off herself, and then she has decided to walk in the grass. She used to not ever. When she was probably between 1 and 2 years old, she would never walk on the grass. Now she will sometimes, but it's her choice to do it.
Hmm.
So she has desensitized herself, and that's fine.
I think that's good because
So,
it's also,
interesting.
you're not saying like before you go outside, you have to wear shoes or you have to put on your socks. Like you're just, I like the phrase you used of like making them available. Like they sit by the door, here they are, take them if you'd like. That's
Yeah,
good.
and you can point out things to your kids too. Like so instead of saying "Hey, LJ, you're not hungry, you're tired,"
Mhm.
right? And telling her how she feels, I'll say things like, uh, "We just ate a really heavy snack. Does your belly feel empty and you're hungry, or does your body feel tired?" And I'll just ask the question. Sometimes she'll just be like, "No, I'm hungry."
Mhm.
And then I'll say, "Okay." And then I get her a snack because I'm trying to teach them this is part of body awareness. This is part of interoception. I want to teach you to trust your own body. And I don't know what your body is saying. I have thoughts about what your body's probably
Yeah.
saying. But
That's the thing,
sometimes I'm wrong.
yeah, and that's the thing with, like, I mean, I feel like we're eating snacks all day. Like, we have, like, a big breakfast, then we have a snack. We might have had a snack before breakfast. Then we have, like, a pretty decent sized lunch, and then we have a snack. Like, it's like snack, snack, snack all day long, and my friend and I were just talking about this earlier today, and I was like, "We don't know what they're feeling." Like, they're growing, these little, like, 2, 3, 4-year-olds are growing so rapidly. They they're probably feeling hungry all the time. I mean, that's really probably what's happening. But they also know that we have snacks all the time. So it's like, okay, which one are we actually feeling here? But I think that's good of like asking like, okay, what's your belly feeling like right now? Like for all of our kids. I think those are good things to be just storing away.
Yeah, I mean, you have to practice these things too. Like,
Mhm.
part of interoception is like questioning and talking through things like not when anyone's upset. So, like, you're eating dinner together and
Right.
you say, "Oh, my belly feels nice and full. I feel content."
Mhm.
Or like, "My belly feels too full," or "My belly's grumbling. I'm still hungry." So talking about your own body, especially for these little guys, like we're still modeling like, and then asking them like, "How does yours feel?" But you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. Like we don't know how they're feeling. And those little guys really are I think they are just hungry all the time.
I know, like, really, when you look at your child from, like, month to month or even, like, day to day at times, and you're like, "You how did you grow out of 2 different shoe sizes?" Or, like, "How did you look so much
Right?
taller just from last night." It's like, that probably is what's really happening.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, oh my gosh, yes. We just grew out of shoes too. Um And I feel like I have to mention this, like, if we're gonna do a sensory and trauma,
Mhm.
food specifically is so, so, like, high on the list of, like, issues, like, children that have experienced trauma having issues with food, and there's, like, a lot of different ways that this can manifest. So, it could be, like, maybe you've heard of, like, food insecurity or, like, like, eating, a lot or, like, binge eating, stuff like that. But then there's also this, like, and some of that's, like, really heavily on the trauma side, trauma
Mhm.
response, especially if there was, like, a lack of food or inconsistent food. But then there's this, like, sensory piece that's really common with, like, extreme picky eating, and there's, like, a diagnosis for this even, um, and I can't remember what it's called, honestly, off the top of my head. But anyway, but when you have a child that's, like, a sensory eater and and this is really important to recognize because what it looks like if you're not thinking about this and kind of going back to your very first question about like, well, is this typical toddler behavior? Like toddlers are picky eaters. Like that's a
Mhm.
thing. That's developmental. Like we all, whatever. But there's a difference between a child that has like sensory selective eating. They're not just being picky. This isn't just like they're asserting their control here. This is I can't stand the smell. I can't stand the texture, the way that it looks, like the way it tastes, the way it feels, like all of these different things. And no amount of like putting it in front of them and saying, well, you're not getting anything else is going to fix it.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that a little bit on different episodes, and then I think we've just talked about it personally too, and definitely with other friends that I've had conversations with about that. What do you think, like, at what point should we share with parents that they need to bring in some outside help? Like the things that if I'm trying to like think about a threshold almost of, okay, I've tried all of these things you're saying XYZ, I'm really frustrated, I'm really sad, like whatever that is that's happening, like we don't want parents to have to get to that point, right? Like there's so much help, there's so many resources out there. Like what do you recommend? What do people need to get to before they bring other people in and like bring a therapist in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like really pro therapy, like especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
If you've got a child and you even like suspect that there's a sensory need, then you should absolutely go get an evaluation by an OT because just knowing like what is going on is sometimes like the most beneficial thing you could do. So
Yeah.
having an OT that can be like, okay, this is where I'm seeing, this sensitivity. This is where I'm seeing this threshold. Um, like, and then coming up with some strategies for you to use at home
Mhm.
can be so helpful. And not all OTs are created equal.
Yeah.
So I hear sometimes from parents like, oh, we did OT, it didn't work.
Yeah,
I'm like,
right.
okay, we'll go see another one.
I
Like,
know.
you know,
What are like some of, because we've talked about this a little bit for my son Judah, but what are some things of like, do you go to your pediatrician first and then they refer you to someone? Do you just like cold call an OT that you're searching for online? Like, what's kind of the process to get there? Because I know obviously people can reach out to you, but I'm thinking of like, what are some other channels that you go through?
Yeah, so, like, as of now, you have to have a physician's referral to get
Mhm.
OT, so you would have to go to, like, your primary doctor. I would say if you go to your doctor and say, like, "I suspect some sensory, like, issues, I'd like to get an evaluation done by an OT," and they say no, or they give you any kind of, like, weird, that's a huge red flag for that doctor.
Mm.
Huge red flag because it, like, does not affect your doctor whatsoever. And just so you know, OTs, like, we're not just out to make money. Like, we do evals and then we say, like, "Oh, no, you don't need me."
Yeah.
Like, we do that all the time.
Yeah, that's good.
Um, so yeah, like I would first say, like, go to your doctor, ask for a referral. Um, if you know people that have gone to an OT and that they like, great. Go to that one. For a lot of areas, there's a wait list. So even more reason that like if you suspect at all, just go ahead and like sign up to get an evaluation right away. If you are on a wait list, a couple things that you can do, like you can look into private pay. Usually if that's something that you can afford, that you can usually get in faster. And some places like do like I know like super bills, so like like your insurance paying like a portion of it,
Mhm.
or like take your HSA. So like there are ways
Yeah.
like, you know, um yeah, but I would go to your physician first and ask for a referral.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm curious too, like we're not at this point yet, but I was given kind of like this packet of information um that, one of our social workers that we've worked with through our adoption of the girls, they gave it to me and said, if you need any of these services, like it's all completely free of charge for children who have drug exposure in utero. And I even asked the question, I was like, do I need to like have their medical chart and like how do I go about that? Like how do I prove that they had this, that, and the other? And they were like, no, you just state it and carry on. And so I was like, oh, okay, interesting. So I have no idea how any of that actually works, but I'm curious as we continue to walk down the road. Like I feel like I'll do what you just said of like go to the primary care, like go to their pediatrician first and then go from there.
Are
But
they on a different insurance? Like, why would they say it's free of charge?
actually, the girls are on, well, they're on our insurance now, but they weren't at the beginning. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. I'm not
I'm, like,
sure.
really curious about this now because I'm like, "What do you mean it's free of charge?"
Yeah, like
Like,
how does that actually work? I feel like, no free lunch. Like there's nothing free.
yeah, well, I'm like, is she just trying to say that, like, insurance will cover it?
Yeah.
Because that's not true.
Yeah, I know. I'm really curious. And that was also a social work. I believe that was a social worker in California. So I guess they could have different
It could be different, like, in
state laws and
California.
things like that, state services. I don't know.
Well, so the thing is, like, insurance will cover therapy if you first of all, if you qualify, because just because you have a diagnosis, like,
Yeah.
you know, I could see a child in my caseload and be like, "Oh, yeah, you have this diagnosis," but, like, there is nothing for us to work well, and so this goes when you're working with insurance. When you do private pay, you don't have to do these things, but when you're
Mm-hmm.
doing with insurance, you have to meet certain qualifications for insurance to say, like, "This qualifies and will pay,"
Yeah.
and then, like, depending on the progress that you're making we could do a whole episode on that, but
Yeah.
anyway, so there are definitely, like you can go to OT and then get discharged, and some of that's a good thing,
Yeah.
like, anyway, but if there's something specific that you wanna work on and they don't qualify
Mm-hmm.
or, um, yeah, I don't know, yeah, sometimes you just have to go the private route, which is not fun, but there
Yeah.
are, like, grants and stuff out there too, so
Yeah. There's actually, when I was talking through some of like the financial side of adoption in the last episode or two, um, there are there are medical grants through some of the adoption agencies and like the places that we even got one of our grants for the adoption. We could also apply for a medical grant if we would need that. So there's a lot of options that are out there if that's something that's needed. But it'll be interesting. I'm interested to see over time like what we need and how we go about getting it.
well, you know, I'm always here for you,
I
so
know. I know. I'm so glad. You're like my that's why like even your like kind of circling it back, like your like parent coaching I think is so crucial because you're you're not going to have like let's say was seeing you and with Judah and like he's coming to you and you're evaluating him and you're working with him and everything like I'm not going to have you for the next 18 years. Like I'm going to have to continue to do different things and like obviously I can call and like have another session and different things like that, but it's so crucial for the parent to be involved and to really know thyself first and then also be able to help. I mean, like, that's kind of the theme that keeps coming back of like we regulate ourselves and then we are able to help regulate our children, like all of those different things. So I think there's a theme.
There's a theme. Yeah, I know. That's why yeah, it's good. I love working with parents and being able to, like,
Yeah.
equip you so that down the road, you're not like, you know, "Wait, what was that?"
Yeah.
At
Or
least that's the goal.
or if we are, then we know who we can call.
There you go. Um,
That's good.
well, if you are listening to this episode, I hope you found it helpful. I hope that, yeah, that you have some resources. Check out the bottom. We will link the quiz and whatever else I mentioned. I don't even remember. I'll have to go back and look at the show notes. But we're so glad to be here and be a resource for you guys. And if anything we said today made you laugh, cry, or feel seen, then share this episode with a friend.
See you next time.